My sister and I are twins, but our lives are completely opposite. I'm Mara, by the way, 28 now, but back then, on that quiet afternoon, I was turning 27. A literature teacher in a small town, the kind where everyone knows your name but not your story. I've always been the quiet one, the observer, after what I'd been through a few years back. Those dark months of emotional turmoil that left me raw and isolated. I'd learned to build walls around my heart. Not to keep people out entirely, but to let them in slowly, carefully. That birthday, I didn't plan anything grand. No parties with balloons and crowds. Those things always felt too loud for my soul. Just a simple evening, with a cake I'd baked myself, chocolate with a hint of raspberry, my favorite, and maybe a glass of wine while rereading Jane Eyre. But then the doorbell rang, and there they were, my older sister Lena and her husband Ethan. Lena with her warm smile that could light up any room, and Ethan, the picture of success in his tailored suit, his charm as polished as his watch. They were the couple everyone envied, the ones who'd made it. Lena, 30 now, had always been the golden child, beautiful, graceful, the one who married well. Ethan ran a thriving business in real estate, the kind that bought them a sprawling suburban home and vacations in Europe. To the world, they were perfect. Lena, Ethan, what a surprise, I said, pulling her into a hug. She smelled like lavender, her signature scent, but there was something off. A faint tremble in her embrace, like she was holding on too tight. I brushed it aside. Maybe she was just tired from the drive. "Happy birthday, little sis," Lena whispered, her voice soft but genuine. She handed me a beautifully wrapped gift, a first-edition poetry book I'd mentioned once. Ethan stood behind her, grinning that easy smile of his, the one that made people trust him instantly. "Mara, you look great. We've missed you." We settled into the living room, the afternoon sun filtering through the curtains like a gentle promise. I lit the candles on the cake, and we sang. Well, they sang, and I laughed along. Ethan was all compliments, telling stories about their latest trip to Paris, how Lena had charmed everyone at a fancy dinner. "She's my lucky charm," he said, slipping an arm around her waist. Lena nodded, her eyes sparkling, but did I imagine it? The way her body stiffened just a fraction under his touch? The laughter around us felt warm, but in my mind it echoed hollow, like it was masking something deeper. As we cut the cake, I noticed it. The bruise. A faint purple shadow peeking from under Lena's sleeve as she reached for a plate. It was small, almost like a thumbprint, but it sent a chill through me. "Lena, what happened to your wrist?" I asked casually, trying not to alarm her. She tugged her sleeve down quickly, too quickly. "Oh, nothing. Just bumped it on the door frame. Clumsy me." Her laugh was light, but her eyes darted to Ethan, who was busy pouring wine. He didn't react, just handed her a glass with a smile. "Yeah, she's always rushing around. Be careful, babe." His tone was affectionate, but there was an edge to it, like a warning wrapped in velvet. The rest of the evening blurred into polite chatter. Ethan dominated the conversation, talking about his latest deals, how he'd closed a big property sale that would set them up for life. Lena nodded along, adding little comments here and there, but her energy seemed faded, like a flower wilting under too much sun. When they finally left, hugging me goodbye, I watched them drive away, Ethan's hand on the wheel, Lena waving from the passenger seat. The streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows, and I stood there longer than I should have, a knot twisting in my gut. That night, sleep wouldn't come. I tossed in bed, the sheets tangling around me like unspoken truths. My mind replayed every moment. The bruise, the flinch, The way Lena's smile never quite reached her eyes. I'd known pain myself, those years after my breakdown, when emotions crashed over me like waves, leaving me isolated and questioning everything. It had taught me to read between the lines, to sense the unspoken. And now, staring at the ceiling, I felt it, a whisper in my soul. Something's wrong. My sister is hiding behind that perfect life. The next morning, the unease lingered like fog. I tried to shake it off, grading papers at my desk, but my thoughts kept drifting back. Lena and I had always been close, even after she married Ethan 5 years ago. We'd grown up in a modest home, our parents gone too soon in a car accident when I was 18 and she was 21. She'd stepped up then, becoming my rock, helping me through college while building her own life. Ethan had swept in like a hero, promising stability, love. But had I missed the signs? The fewer calls, the shorter visits? I poured another cup of coffee, the steam rising like my growing doubt. What if it was nothing? Just my overactive imagination, born from my own scars. But deep down, I knew better. Pain recognizes pain. And as I sat there, the quiet of my apartment pressing in, I made a decision. I'd visit her unannounced, just to check, just to be sure. The drive to their house took an hour, winding through suburbs where lawns were manicured and lives seemed flawless. I pulled up to their gate, heart pounding. What was I doing? Intruding like this? But then I thought of that bruise, and I pressed the buzzer. Lena's voice crackled through the intercom, surprised but welcoming. "Mara, come in!" She met me at the door, her hair pulled back, makeup fresh. But up close, her eyes were rimmed red, like she'd been crying. "What brings you here?" she asked, ushering me inside. The house was immaculate, marble floors, crystal vases, but it felt cold, like a stage set. "Just missed you," I said, hugging her again. Ethan appeared from his study, all smiles. "Little sister, twice in 2 days? To what do we owe the pleasure?" We sat in the kitchen, sipping tea. Lena moved with a quiet grace, but I watched her. How she glanced at the clock, how her hands fidgeted. Ethan joked about work, but his eyes lingered on her a beat too long. When I asked about their plans for the weekend, Lena started to answer, but he cut in smoothly. "We're staying in. Busy times." As the visit stretched on, I excused myself to the bathroom. On the way, I passed a hallway mirror and caught a glimpse of something, a faint smudge on the wall, like dried blood hastily wiped away. My stomach lurched, and on the floor, half hidden under a rug, a broken earring, Lena's favorite pearl one, the clasp bent. I left soon after, my mind racing. The drive home was a blur of questions. Was that blood? Why the broken earring? And that bruise? It wasn't from a door. I knew the shape of fingerprints when they gripped too hard. By the time I got home, suspicion had rooted deep. I couldn't ignore it anymore. My sister, my Lena, was in trouble, and I, with my own history of fighting inner demons, felt a fire ignite. I had to uncover the truth, no matter how dark. Little did I know, it would lead me into a nightmare that would change us both forever. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. The apartment was quiet, but inside my head, a storm kept circling. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that bruise again. Small, round, the exact size of a thumb pressing too hard. I saw the way Lena's hand shook when she lifted the knife to cut my birthday cake. I saw the flicker in her eyes when Ethan's fingers curled around her shoulder, like she was bracing for impact. And I heard his voice, smooth as silk, saying, "Be careful, babe," like it was a joke. But it wasn't. I knew jokes. That wasn't one. I got out of bed at 4 a.m., padded to the kitchen, and stood over the sink with a glass of water I didn't drink. The moonlight cut through the blinds in sharp lines across the floor. I kept replaying the evening, frame by frame, like a film I couldn't stop. The way Lena laughed too quickly when Ethan told a story. The way she angled her body slightly away from him, even when sitting close. The way her fingers curled into her palm when he touched her hair. I'd spent years learning to read people, first in therapy, then in classrooms, watching students hide pain behind bravado. I knew the signs. And Lena, my Lena, was screaming without making a sound. By dawn, I was dressed and pacing. I told myself I was overreacting, that maybe she'd just had a bad week, that Ethan was stressed from work, that I was projecting my own trauma onto them. But the lie tasted bitter. I'd been gaslit before, by doctors, by friends, by my own mind during those dark years. I knew how it worked. And this wasn't stress. This was fear. I called her that morning. No answer. I texted, "Hey, just checking in. Loved seeing you yesterday. Coffee soon?" 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. Finally, "Can't today. Ethan's home. Maybe next week?" The message was polite, too polite, like she'd rehearsed it. I stared at the screen until it went dark. My chest tightened. I knew that tone. I'd used it myself years ago when I was too ashamed to let anyone see how broken I was. When I smiled through tears and said, "I'm fine." I grabbed my keys. The drive to their house felt longer this time, even though the route was the same. I kept glancing at the passenger seat, where Lena had sat just yesterday, her hands folded too neatly in her lap. I turned off the radio. I didn't want music. I wanted silence to think. I didn't call ahead. I told myself it was spontaneous, a sister dropping by with pastries. But really, I needed to see her face when she wasn't expecting me. I needed to catch the truth before the mask went back on. The gate was open this time. Unusual. Ethan's car was in the driveway, but the curtains were drawn. I parked, took a breath, and walked to the door. My hand hovered over the bell. What if he answered? What if she was fine and I was just paranoid? I rang it anyway. Footsteps. Slow. Then the door cracked open, just an inch. Lena's eye appeared, wide and bloodshot. "Mara?" Her voice was a whisper. "What are you doing here?" "I brought croissants," I said, holding up the bag like a peace offering. "Thought we could have breakfast." She hesitated. Then the door opened wider. She was in a robe, hair damp, no makeup. Her left cheek had a faint redness, like she'd been slapped recently. Not bruised yet, just flushed. My stomach dropped. "Ethan's in the shower," she said quickly, stepping aside. "Come in, but quietly." The house smelled like coffee and something metallic. Blood? No, just my imagination. I hoped. We sat at the kitchen island. She poured tea with trembling hands. The sleeve of her robe rode up, and there it was again. The bruise, darker now, finger-shaped. I couldn't look away. "Lena," I said softly. "Talk to me." She smiled, too wide, too fast. "About what? I'm fine, just tired." "You're not fine." Her eyes flicked toward the hallway. A muscle in her jaw twitched. "Mara, please, not now." Footsteps upstairs. Heavy. "Ethan." She stood abruptly. "You should go." "No." I grabbed her wrist, gently, but she flinched like I'd burned her. "Lena, I see it. I see you." Her breath hitched. For a second, the mask slipped. I saw the terror, the exhaustion, the shame. Then the footsteps stopped. A door opened. "Lena?" Ethan's voice, smooth and curious. "Who's here?" She pulled her sleeve down. "Mara stopped by. She's leaving." He appeared in the doorway, towel around his neck, hair wet, smiling. Always smiling. "Mara, back so soon? You two are attached at the hip." I forced a laugh. "Just dropping off breakfast. I'll head out." But as I stood, I caught it. his hand on the small of Lena's back, not affectionate, possessive. His fingers pressed into her spine, just above the waistband. She didn't move, didn't breathe. I left with the croissants untouched. The drive home was a blur. I pulled over twice because I couldn't see through the tears. Not sad tears, angry ones, hot, furious, helpless. How long had this been going on? How had I missed it? How had everyone missed it? That night, I sat at my desk with a notebook. I wrote down everything I'd seen. The bruise, the flinch, the red cheek, the way she whispered, the metallic smell, the broken earring from yesterday, the blood smudge on the wall. I drew connections like a detective, because that's what I'd become, a sister turned sleuth. I started watching their house from a distance, not stalking, just observing. I'd park down the street after school, pretending to read. I saw Ethan leave for work, saw the curtains stay closed all day, saw Lena once, through a sliver in the blinds, standing in the kitchen with her head bowed, saw a shadow move behind her, tall, broad. Ethan? He was supposed to be at the office. One afternoon, I saw his mother arrive. Mrs. Clare, prim, polished, always in pearls. She carried a casserole like it was a sacrament, stayed an hour, left with a tight smile. I started asking questions, subtly. To neighbors, to the mailman, to the woman at the bakery Lena used to love. "Haven't seen Mrs. Harlow in weeks," the baker said. "Used to come every Saturday for sourdough. Now, nothing." I checked Lena's social media. Her last post was 3 months ago. A photo of her and Ethan at a gala, smiling, perfect, but the comments, people asking where she'd gone. "Miss your posts. Everything okay?" No replies. I called her again. Voicemail. I texted, "I'm worried. Please call me." No response. Then, one night, my phone buzzed at 2 a.m. A text from Lena. "Don't come back. I'm okay. Please stop." I stared at it for an hour. Then I wrote back, "I'm not stopping. I love you." No reply. But I wasn't done. I couldn't be, because every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Not the smiling one from my birthday, but the one at the door this morning, the one that looked trapped. I made a decision then, sitting in the dark with my phone glowing like a lifeline. I would go back, not as a sister dropping by, not as a concerned friend, but as someone who knew, someone who wouldn't leave until I saw the truth with my own eyes, because suspicion wasn't enough anymore. I needed proof, and I needed to get her out. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I packed a small bag, water, a notebook, my phone with a full battery. I drove to their street and parked 2 blocks away, behind a hedge. I waited. At 9:17 a.m., Ethan left. Suit, briefcase, kiss to the air toward the window, Lena watching from behind glass. He didn't see me. I waited 10 more minutes. Then I walked to the side gate, the one near the garden Lena used to tend. It was unlocked. Strange. She'd always kept it latched. I slipped through. The backyard was overgrown. Weeds choked the roses. The patio furniture was dusty. No one had sat out here in months. I moved to the kitchen window, peered in. Lena was there, alone. She was on her knees, scrubbing the floor with a toothbrush. Her hair hung in her face. Her sleeves were pushed up, and her arms. God, her arms! Bruises in every stage. Yellow, purple, fresh red welts. One looked like a belt mark. She didn't see me. She was crying, silent, shoulders shaking. I raised my hand to knock, then froze. A shadow moved inside. Tall. Male. Ethan? No, he'd left. But someone was there. Then I heard it. A voice. Low. Mocking. "Faster, Lena. You missed a spot." My blood turned to ice. I ducked down, heart hammering. I crept to the corner of the house, phone in hand, recording through the window. I couldn't see the man's face, just his back. But I saw Lena. I saw her flinch when he stepped closer. I saw her drop the toothbrush and cover her head with her arms. I saw enough. I backed away, silent, tears streaming. I ran to my car, hands shaking so hard I could barely start it. That was the moment I stopped wondering. That was the moment I knew, and that was the moment I decided I wasn't just going to save her, I was going to destroy him. The next morning, I woke up gasping, like I'd been drowning in my own bed. My phone was still clutched in my hand, the video I'd recorded looping silently on the screen. Lena on her knees, the shadow, the toothbrush. I watched it 3 times, each pass carving the image deeper into my skull. I wanted to scream, but the sound stayed trapped in my throat, a dry, useless thing. Instead, I got up, showered until the water ran cold, and dressed like I was going to war. Jeans, boots, hair twisted into a knot so tight it hurt. I needed the pain to keep me sharp. I drove back to their street before 8. Ethan's car was gone. Good. I parked 2 houses down behind a delivery van and waited. At 8:27, the front door opened. Lena stepped out onto the porch in a long-sleeved cardigan despite the heat, holding a trash bag. She moved like every joint ached. When she bent to set the bag on the curb, the sleeve rode up, just enough. Fresh bruises, purple and angry, ringed her forearm like a cuff. She glanced up and down the street, quick, panicked, then hurried back inside. I waited another 10 minutes. Then I walked straight to the front door and rang the bell. No hesitation. No pastries this time. Just me. Footsteps. The door cracked. Lena's face appeared, pale, eyes swollen. "Mara, I told you, I'm not leaving." I pushed the door open with my shoulder, gentle but firm. She stumbled back, startled. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. The click of the latch sounded final, like a judge's gavel. The house smelled wrong. Bleach over something sour. Fear, maybe. The foyer was pristine, marble gleaming, fresh lilies in a vase. But the air felt thick, used up. Lena stood frozen, arms wrapped around herself. "He'll be back by noon," she whispered. "Please." "Then we have 3 hours." I took her hand, cold, trembling. "Show me." She tried to pull away. "There's nothing." "Lena." I looked her dead in the eye. "I saw you yesterday, through the window. I recorded it." Her knees buckled. I caught her before she hit the floor. She weighed nothing, like grief had hollowed her out. I half carried her to the living room couch. The cushions were still indented from where someone, heavier, had sat. A man's watch lay on the coffee table, ticking loudly in the silence. She curled into herself, knees to chest. "You don't understand. If he finds out, he won't." I knelt in front of her. "Not yet." She started crying then, ugly, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. I held her until the storm passed, stroking her hair like our mom used to when we were kids and thunderstorms scared us. When she finally spoke, her voice was shredded. "It started small," she said. A shove, a raised voice. I thought it was stress. Then the first slap. I told myself it was my fault. I'd burned dinner. Then the belt. Then the rules. No phone, no visitors, no leaving without permission. She laughed. A broken sound. "He calls it love, says I need discipline." I wanted to be sick. Instead, I stood, walked to the hallway, and found what I was looking for. The smudge on the wall I'd seen last time. Up close, it was definitely blood, flaked and brown. I scraped a sample into a plastic bag I'd brought in my pocket. Evidence. Always. Evidence. "Show me the rest," I said. She led me through the house like a ghost giving a tour of her own grave. The kitchen, a cabinet with a lock on the outside, where her phone lived. The dining room, a corner where she knelt for hours if she disrespected him. The belt hung on a hook by the pantry, thick leather, the buckle scratched from use. I took photos, Close-ups, timestamps. Upstairs, the bedroom. The bed was made with military precision, but the sheets smelled of bleach and sweat. She opened the closet. Inside, a row of long-sleeved dresses, even in summer. On the floor, a small safe, locked. "That's where he keeps my ID," she said. "Passport, birth certificate, everything." I noticed the mirror above the dresser had a crack running through it, spiderwebbing from the center. "He threw a lamp," she said quietly, "when I asked to visit you last month." I took more pictures. My hands didn't shake. Rage had burned the tremor out. We moved to the bathroom. She hesitated, then rolled up her sleeves all the way. The bruises were a map of cruelty, belt marks across her back, fingerprints on her throat, a burn on her wrist shaped like a cigar tip. She turned on the faucet to muffle her crying. "He makes me ice them so they don't show. Then he kisses them and says, 'Sorry,' every time." I couldn't speak. My throat was raw. I just held her again, felt her bones through the thin fabric. Downstairs, the doorbell rang. We both froze. "Delivery," a voice called. Lena's panic was instant. "Hide," she hissed, shoving me toward the pantry. I went, but left the door cracked. Through the gap, I watched her paste on a smile. Sign for a package, thank the guy. The second the door closed, she sagged against it, package forgotten on the floor. I came out. "We're leaving," I said. "I can't." Her voice cracked. "He'll find me. He has cameras everywhere. And his mother, she checks on me when he's gone, calls it helping." I looked up. Sure enough, a small black dome in the corner of the ceiling, red light blinking. Recording. I gave it the finger, then turned to her. "Then we don't leave as you. We leave as someone else." She stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "I'm serious," I said. "You disappear, I take your place, just long enough to get what we need." "No," she backed away. "He'll kill you." "He won't know it's me." I took her face in my hands. "Lena, look at me. We're the same height. Same hair if I dye it. Same eyes. I've watched you my whole life. I know you. Your walk, your laugh, the way you stirred tea counterclockwise. I can do this." She was shaking her head, but I saw the flicker, hope, terror, both. The clock on the wall ticked past 10:15. Ethan would be back soon. I made the decision for both of us. Pack a bag, one change of clothes, nothing he'll notice missing. You're going to my friend Sarah's cabin, 2 hours north. No phone, cash only. I'll drive you tonight. "And you?" she whispered. "I'll come back here, as you." She started crying again, but this time she nodded. We moved fast. I found her a hoodie, helped her stuff underwear and a toothbrush into a gym bag. I took her wedding ring, too distinctive, and slipped it onto my own finger. It fit. Of course it did. 11:42. We were in the garage. Her car was there, but the keys were in the safe. No time. We'd take mine, leave it in a parking lot, Uber the rest of the way. I grabbed a baseball cap from the shelf, pulled it low over her face. As we stepped outside, Mrs. Claire's car pulled into the driveway. Perfect timing. She rolled down the window, pearls gleaming. "Lena, dear, I brought lunch." Lena froze. I stepped in front of her. "She's not feeling well," I said, pitching my voice higher, softer, Lena's cadence. "I'm taking her to the doctor." Claire's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" "Mara, her sister." I smiled, Lena's tight, polite smile. "We're in a hurry." Claire looked past me to Lena, who kept her head down. "Call me later, darling," she said, but her tone was ice. She reversed out, tires crunching. We didn't wait to see if she circled back. I bundled Lena into my car, threw a blanket over her in the back seat. We drove in silence, my knuckles white on the wheel. Every mile felt like borrowed time. At a strip mall I parked, wiped the car for prints, left the keys under the mat. Uber to a bus station, bus to a town an hour away. Then another Uber to Sarah's cabin. Sarah, who owed me a favor from college, who asked no questions when I texted emergency, no cops. I hugged Lena one last time on the gravel path. She clung to me like I was the last solid thing in her world. "What if he hurts you?" she whispered. "Then I'll hurt him worse," I said. I meant it. I watched her disappear inside the cabin, lights flickering on. Then I turned and walked into the trees, thumbing another ride back to the city. My phone buzzed. "Ethan, where are you?" I typed with Lena's account, the one I'd memorized the password for months ago when she'd asked me to check her email. "Doctor, be home soon." 3 dots. Then, "Hurry." I deleted the thread, powered the phone off, and slipped it into my pocket. By dusk, I was back in their neighborhood, walking up the driveway in Lena's clothes, stolen from the laundry basket before we left. The house loomed, windows glowing like eyes. I took a breath, rolled my shoulders, and became her, shoulders rounded, eyes down, smile small. I opened the door. Ethan was in the foyer, arms crossed. "You're late." I flinched. Just enough. "Traffic," I murmured. He studied me. I let him. Then he nodded, satisfied. "Dinner's cold. Heat it up." I went to the kitchen, hands steady now. The belt still hung on its hook. I touched it as I passed, felt the worn leather under my fingers. Soon, I thought. Soon. That night I lay in their bed, her bed, beside the monster, listening to him breathe. I counted heartbeats. I memorized the rhythm of the house, the creak on the 3rd stair, the hum of the camera in the hallway, the way he rolled toward me in his sleep, possessive, even unconscious. I stared at the ceiling and made a promise to the dark. 2 weeks, that's all I needed. 2 weeks to take everything he loved and give it back to the woman he tried to destroy. The first morning I woke up in Lena's bed, I thought I'd suffocate. The sheets smelled of his cologne and her fear, a sickening mix that clung to my skin no matter how many times I scrubbed in the shower. Ethan had already left for the office, kissing my forehead with a casual, "be good," as if I were a dog he expected to stay. I stood under the scalding water until my fingers pruned, letting it burn away the night. When I stepped out, I caught my reflection in the fogged mirror. Lena's eyes staring back, but harder now. Mine. I dressed in one of her long-sleeved blouses, the fabric soft but heavy with memory. Every movement had to be hers, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear with her left hand, the slight limp she'd developed from a twisted ankle he'd caused months ago. I practiced in the mirror until the mimicry felt natural, until I could flinch on cue. Then I started my real work. The house was a prison disguised as a palace. Cameras in every corner, motion sensors on the windows, locks on the outside of doors. I found the control panel in Ethan's study, hidden behind a false bookcase, because of course it was. The password was their wedding date. Arrogant bastard. I memorized the layout, the blind spots, the range of each lens. I moved like a ghost, testing angles, learning where I could stand without being seen. I began with the belt. It still hung in the pantry, a silent threat. I took it down when he was gone, ran my fingers over the buckle, felt the weight of it. I imagined the sound it made against her skin, the way it cracked like thunder. I hung it back exactly as it was, but not before snapping a photo with Lena's phone. Time-stamped, geotagged. Evidence. The first time his friends came over, I nearly broke. It was a Thursday. 3 days into my charade, Ethan texted me at noon. "Company tonight. Wear the blue dress." Smile. I did. The blue dress was modest, high-necked, but it clung in ways that made me feel exposed. I stood in the kitchen chopping vegetables while they arrived. 4 men, all loud and drunk on power, They smelled of cigars and entitlement. Ethan greeted them like a king, slapping backs, pouring whiskey. "Lena, drinks," he called, not looking at me. I carried the tray in, head down, hands steady. One of them, Victor, I'd learn later, grabbed my wrist as I passed. "Look at this one," he slurred. "Ethan's got her trained good." They laughed. I smiled Lena's small, tight smile and kept moving. They made me serve all night, refilling glasses, clearing plates, standing in the corner when I wasn't needed. Every time I passed, someone touched me. My hair, my arm, the small of my back. Ethan watched with pride, like I was a show pony. When I spilled a drop of wine on Victor's shoe, he grabbed my hair and yanked my head back. "Clumsy bitch," he snarled, and poured the rest of his drink over my head. The red liquid soaked the dress, ran down my neck. They howled with laughter. Ethan just smirked. "Clean it up." I knelt with a towel, scrubbing the floor while they toasted my humiliation. My knees ached against the tile, but I kept my face blank. Inside, I was cataloging every face, every word. I'd slipped a tiny recorder into the flower arrangement earlier, Lena's phone, voice memo running. It caught everything. When they finally left, Ethan pulled me up by the arm. "You did good," he said, kissing my wine-soaked hair. "See? It's not hard when you behave." I nodded, eyes down. "I'm sorry about the spill." He backhanded me, casual, almost affectionate. My lips split. Blood filled my mouth. "Next time, don't apologize. Just don't fuck up." I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and stared at the damage. The cut wasn't deep, but it bled steadily. I pressed a towel to it, watching the white fabric turn crimson. I took a selfie. Close up, no filters. Then I rinsed my mouth, fixed my makeup, and went to bed beside him. He was already snoring. The next day, I found the locked drawer in his desk. It took 3 hairpins and a YouTube tutorial I'd watched on Lena's phone at 3 a.m., but I got it open. Inside, Lena's real phone, smashed screen, battery dead. Her wallet, ID, credit cards, all canceled. A folder of photos, her bruised, crying, posed like trophies. My hands shook as I photographed each one, then put everything back exactly. I started tailing his mother. Claire came every Tuesday, always with a casserole and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She'd sit with Lena in the kitchen, sipping tea, asking pointed questions. "You look tired, dear. Are you eating?" I'd murmur yes, keep my eyes down. She'd pat my hand. "Ethan works so hard. You must support him." One Tuesday, she arrived early. I was in the garden, my one allowed hour of fresh air. When her car pulled up, I ducked behind the hedge, phone recording. She didn't go to the front door. She went to the side gate, used a key, and let herself in. I followed silently, barefoot on the grass. She went straight to the study. I watched through the crack in the door as she opened the safe. Combination 7194, Lena's birthday backward. She took out an envelope, counted cash, then replaced it with a new one. Drug money? Hush money? I didn't know yet, but I filmed it all. That night, Ethan came home late, drunk. He dragged me to the bedroom by my hair, threw me on the bed. "You think you're clever?" he hissed, sneaking around the garden like a rat. I played dumb. I just needed air. He hit me, fist this time, across the cheekbone. Pain exploded, white and hot. I tasted blood again. "Next time you want air, ask," he said, then passed out on the floor. I lay there until his breathing evened out, then crawled to the bathroom. My face was swelling, the skin split. I took more photos. Then I did something I hadn't allowed myself yet. I cried, not for the pain, but for Lena, for every night she'd endured this alone, for the years I'd missed. The next morning, I found the basement. I'd never been allowed down there. Ethan said it was storage, flooded. but I heard noises at night, thumping, like something heavy being moved. I waited until he left for a business trip, really a weekend with his gang friends at a lake house. Claire was coming to check on me, but I'd slipped a sleeping pill into her tea the last visit. She'd nap for hours. I found the key in his nightstand, hidden under a false bottom. The basement door was padlocked, but the key fit. The stairs creaked under my weight, the air damp and sour. At the bottom, a single bulb flickered. It wasn't storage. It was a cage, a mattress on the floor, stained and bare, a bucket in the corner, chains bolted to the wall, the links scratched and rusted, a camera mounted high, red light blinking. On the wall, scratched into the concrete, Lena was here. Over and over, frantic, deep. I sank to my knees. The air left my lungs in a rush. This was where he broke her. Not just beat her, broke her. Days, maybe weeks, locked down here. The bucket for waste, the chains for when she fought back. I stayed until my legs went numb, memorizing every detail. I took videos, photos, scraped rust from the chains into evidence bags. I found a tooth, small, human, wedged in a crack. I wrapped it in tissue. When I climbed back up, Claire was still asleep on the couch, snoring softly. I locked the door, replaced the key, and went to the kitchen. I made tea with shaking hands, then sat at the table and planned. I had enough now. Videos, photos, the tooth, the recordings of his friends, the safe, the basement. But it wasn't about evidence anymore. It was about how to use it. Police would come, yes, but Ethan had money, lawyers, friends in high places. He'd wiggle out. Or worse, he'd find Lena first. No, I needed more than arrest. I needed ruin. I started with the finances. Ethan trusted Lena now. I was obedient, quiet, perfect. He'd begun letting me sign for deliveries, pay small bills. I'd forged her signature 100 times in practice. One afternoon, he handed me a stack of documents. Sign these. Transfer papers. Boring stuff. I did, but I photographed every page first. Bank accounts, offshore holdings, properties in 3 states, shell companies. I spent nights researching, tracing the money through public records, dark web forums, anything I could access on Lena's laptop when he was asleep. I found the pattern. Money laundering through his real estate deals. The gang friends weren't just thugs. They were partners. Victor ran drugs through the properties. Another handled extortion. Ethan cleaned the cash. I started small, transferred $500 from a joint account to one I'd opened in Lena's name. Real Lena at the cabin. Then $2,000. Then $10,000. Each time I covered it with fake invoices, forged receipts. Ethan never noticed. He was too busy bragging. I recorded everything, every transfer, every password, written in Lena's diary, hidden under the mattress. I emailed copies to a burner account, then deleted the sent folder. 2 weeks became 3. My face healed, but I kept the scars hidden under makeup. I smiled when he hit me. I knelt when he demanded. I served his friends with wine-soaked hair and bruises under silk. And every night, I whispered to the dark, just a little longer, because the trap was almost set. The house of cards was trembling, and I was the wind. The basement tooth lived in a tiny plastic bag inside my bra, pressed against my skin like a secret heartbeat. I never took it out, not even to shower. It reminded me why I was still here, why I swallowed the screams every time Ethan's hand cracked across my face. Some nights I lay awake beside his snoring bulk and rolled the bag between my fingers, feeling the sharp edge of enamel through the plastic. This was hers. This is what he took. I needed the pain to stay sharp, to keep from slipping into the numb obedience he expected. 4 weeks in, I had everything but the final piece, total access. Ethan still kept the master passwords in his head. changed them weekly, and watched me like a hawk whenever I touched his laptop. I needed him careless. I needed him to believe I was broken. So I staged the breakdown. It was a Tuesday. Claire was due for her weekly inspection. I waited until she arrived. Pearls clicking, casserole in hand. Ethan was in his study on a call. I met her in the kitchen, eyes red from onions I'd sliced just for the effect. "Claire," I whispered, voice cracking. "I can't do this anymore." She set the dish down, lips thin. "What's that supposed to mean?" I let the tears come, real ones this time, fueled by weeks of rage. "I'm trying. I swear I am. But nothing's ever good enough." I rolled up my sleeve, showed her the freshest bruise, a belt mark still raised and purple. "He says it's my fault, that I make him do it." Her face flickered, something between pity and triumph. She liked being needed, liked being the one who understood her son. "Men get frustrated, dear. Ethan works so hard. You push him." I nodded, let my shoulders collapse. "I know, I don't know how to stop pushing." She patted my cheek, the way you'd comfort a child who'd skinned a knee. "Kneel for an hour tonight. Reflect. It helps." I almost laughed. Instead, I whispered, "Thank you." That night, I knelt in the dining room corner, knees on rice he'd scattered for extra punishment. The grains dug in like teeth. Ethan watched from the doorway, arms crossed, satisfied. When the hour was up, he lifted me by the elbow, kissed my forehead. "Good girl. See? You're learning." The next day, he handed me the laptop. "Pay the contractors. Use my account. You've earned it." I nearly dropped it. My pulse hammered so loud I was sure he'd hear, but he just walked away, whistling. I sat at the kitchen island, fingers flying. Password, Lena071994. Same as always. He'd stopped changing it. Arrogance. I opened the banking app, the investment portfolios, the offshore accounts. I screenshotted everything, then started the transfers. Not small anymore. 50,000, 100, 200, each one routed through a series of accounts I'd set up under Lena's maiden name, then into a trust in the Caymans. Irreversible, untraceable. I was halfway through when the front door slammed. Ethan, home early. I closed the laptop, heart in my throat, and slid it back to his side of the island. He stormed in, face thunderous. "Victor's bitching about a missing shipment. You seen any weird emails?" I shook my head, wide-eyed. "I only use it for bills." He stared at me a long second, then grunted. "Fine. Order dinner, tie, and wear the red lingerie later." I nodded, meek. The second he left the room, I reopened the laptop, finished the last transfer, $500,000, and wiped the history. Then I ordered dinner, with shaking hands. That night, he was gentle, almost loving. The lingerie worked its magic. He fell asleep with his arm heavy across my waist. I waited until his breathing deepened, then slipped out of bed. I dressed in the dark, grabbed the go bag I'd hidden in the linen closet weeks ago. Lena's real ID, the evidence drive, a burner phone, cash. I left a note on the pillow in Lena's handwriting. "Needed air. Back soon." I walked out the front door at 2:13 a.m. The alarm was off. He'd forgotten to set it after the Thai food. I disabled the cameras from the panel in the garage, a trick I'd learned from the security manual I'd photographed page by page. Then I hot-wired Lena's car, thank you, YouTube, and drove. The cabin was 2 hours north, a speck on a map Sarah had sworn to forget. I took back roads, headlights off when I could, until the city lights faded into pine and silence. Dawn was breaking when I pulled up the gravel drive. The porch light flickered on. Lena stepped out, thinner, eyes hollow, but alive. She ran to me, barefoot, and we collided in the dirt. She smelled like wood smoke and safety. "You're here," she kept saying, like she couldn't believe it. "You're really here." I held her at arm's length. "It's done. The money's moved. The evidence is copied. We just need to get you somewhere he'll never look." She shook her head. "No, I'm not running anymore." I started to argue, but she cut me off. "I've been thinking. While you were in there, I can't keep hiding, and you can't keep being me. It's too dangerous. Lena, listen." She took my hands. Her fingers were steady now. "We finish this together, but not with police. Not yet. He'll buy his way out. We take everything. His name, his empire, his freedom. Then we hand him the rope." I stared at her. The woman who'd once begged me not to call the cops was gone. In her place stood someone forged in fire. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we go back. One last time. You keep playing me, I'll be someone else. A maid, a cousin, whatever gets me inside without him knowing. We get the final pieces, his signed confession maybe, or the ledger he keeps in the safe. Then we burn it all down." I wanted to say no, to bundle her into the car and drive until the ocean stopped us. But I saw the steel in her eyes, the same steel I'd felt growing in my own chest. She wasn't asking permission. She was declaring war. I nodded. 1 week. We stage it perfectly. Then we end him. We spent the day planning. Sarah had left us maps, burner phones, a printer. We forged documents, a new ID for Lena as Clara, a distant cousin come to help with housework after Lena's nervous breakdown. We dyed Lena's hair dark, cut it short. I taught her my mannerisms, the way I tilted my head when I listened, the half smile I used in parent-teacher conferences. She taught me the rest of Ethan's routines, the ones I'd missed, the safe combination change every Friday, the way he showered at 6:45 sharp, the code to the panic room he thought no one knew. Night fell. We sat on the porch, sharing a bottle of wine older than our parents' marriage. The stars were brutal in their clarity. "I keep thinking about the basement," I said quietly. "The tooth." Lena went still. He pulled it with pliers, said if I screamed again, he'd take another. I closed my eyes. "I'm going to make him beg for pliers." She laughed, a sound like breaking glass finally swept away. "We both will." We drove back at dawn. I dropped her 2 miles from the house, in a church parking lot where a parishioner owed Sarah a favor. She'd walk the rest, arrive at the gate with a sob story and a forged letter from Family Services. I'd be waiting inside, the obedient wife, ready to vouch for her. I parked Lena's car in the garage, re-enabled the cameras, and slipped back into bed. Ethan stirred when I slid under the covers. "Where'd you go?" he mumbled. "Couldn't sleep. Walked the block." He grunted, already drifting off. "Don't do it again." I pressed my face into the pillow to hide the smile. The trap was set. The players were in place. All that was left was the fall, and I could already taste the dust. The morning Lena walked up the driveway as Clara, I felt the air shift inside the house, as though the walls themselves leaned forward to watch. I stood at the kitchen window, coffee cooling in my hands, and watched her approach. She wore a plain gray dress I'd bought at a thrift store. Hair dyed the color of wet bark and cut jagged around her ears. A cheap canvas bag hung from her shoulder. She kept her eyes down, shoulders curved inward, the posture of someone who had learned to take up as little space as possible. It was perfect. It was terrifying. Ethan was in the shower, water drumming against tile in the steady rhythm I had memorized. I had exactly 4 minutes before he stepped out, towel around his waist, expecting breakfast. I opened the front door before she could ring the bell. "Clara," I said, loud enough for the outdoor camera to catch. My voice carried Lena's soft lilt, the one that always sounded like an apology. "You made it. Come in." She lifted her head just enough for me to see her eyes. Dark brown contacts, hiding the green we shared. They were steady. She gave the smallest nod and stepped over the threshold. The door shut behind her with a soft click that felt louder than gunfire. I led her through the foyer, past the staircase where the camera's red eye blinked. "Ethan's almost ready," I murmured. "Remember, you're family services, cousin on my mother's side. You're here to help after my episode." I let my voice crack on the last word, the way Lena's used to when she spoke of nightmares. She answered in a voice I had never heard from her before, low and careful. "I remember." We reached the kitchen. I pointed to the corner by the pantry. "Stand there, hands folded. Don't speak unless he asks a direct question." She obeyed instantly, melting into the shadow of the cabinets. I busied myself with eggs, the sizzle loud in the silence. Ethan appeared in the doorway, hair damp, shirt unbuttoned. He took one look at Clara and paused. "Who's this?" I turned, spatula in hand, and gave him the smile he liked, small, submissive, grateful for his attention. "Ethan, this is Clara. Family Services sent her. She's a distant cousin. After the hospital stay, they thought I needed help around the house." I let my gaze drop to the floor. "I didn't want to bother you." He studied her. Clara kept her eyes on the tile, hands clasped so tight, the knuckles blanched. I held my breath. Finally, he shrugged. "Fine. She cleans. She cooks. She stays out of my way. You keep her on a leash." He kissed the top of my head, possessive, then sat at the island. "Coffee." I poured it black. Exactly 2 sugars and set it in front of him. Clara never moved. The first day passed in a haze of careful choreography. I cooked, Clara cleaned. I smiled. Clara faded into corners. Ethan ignored her entirely, which was perfect. By evening, he was on the phone in his study, laughing with Victor about a new shipment. I caught Clara's eye across the room and gave the tiniest tilt of my head. She disappeared upstairs to fold laundry. I found her later in the guest room, door locked, window cracked open to the night. She sat on the narrow bed, knees drawn up, staring at the wall. When I slipped inside, she didn't look up. "I hate this room," she whispered. "It smells like him." I sat beside her. 3 more days, then we move." She nodded, but her hands trembled. I took them in mine. "You're not the woman who left this house. You're stronger now." "I'm terrified," she said. "Use it." The next morning, Ethan left for a meeting in the city. The second his car disappeared around the bend, we sprang into motion. I disabled the indoor cameras with the code I'd watched him enter a dozen times. Clara pulled a flash drive from the lining of her bag. Tiny, black, untraceable. We moved to the study. The safe sat behind the false panel. Combination still Lena's birthday backward. I spun the dial while Clara stood guard at the door. Inside, the ledger, thick leather, pages filled with numbers and initials. Beside it, a stack of burner phones and a second passport in Ethan's name, photo altered just enough to fool a casual glance. I photographed every page, every passport stamp, every phone contact. Clara's hands were steady now, sliding documents back exactly as they'd been. We were halfway through when the front door slammed. We froze. Footsteps, heavy, impatient. Ethan's voice boomed up the stairs. "Lena, where the fuck are my keys?" My heart tried to claw out of my chest. I shoved the ledger back, spun the dial, and slid the panel closed. Clara was already moving, silent as smoke, slipping into the hallway linen closet. I ran downstairs, smoothing my hair, forcing my voice into Lena's tremor. "They're on the hook by the garage," I called. He stormed past me, grabbed the keys, and left again without a word. The door slammed a second time. I waited until the sound of his engine faded before I let my knees buckle. Clara emerged from the closet, face pale but composed. "Close," she said. "Too close," I answered. That night, we worked in shifts. I played the perfect wife, serving dinner, laughing at his jokes, letting him pull me onto his lap while his friends drank and boasted. Clara stayed in the kitchen, washing dishes that didn't need washing, ears open. She caught fragments: a warehouse address, a drop time, Victor's new route through the port. She texted them to the burner phone hidden in the flour canister. On the third night, Ethan came home drunk, eyes glassy, mood swinging between affection and rage. He found me in the bedroom, folding his shirts. Without warning, he backhanded me, hard enough that I tasted blood. I let myself fall, curling into the carpet the way Lena used to. "Stand up," he snarled. I rose slowly, eyes down. He grabbed my chin, forced me to look at him. "You're lucky I keep you," he said. "Without me, you're nothing." I nodded. Inside, I counted heartbeats. 1 week, I had promised myself. 1 week to take everything. He shoved me toward the bed. I went willingly, every nerve screaming. When it was over, he fell asleep instantly, arm heavy across my waist. I waited until his breathing deepened, then slipped out from under him. I found Clara in the guest room, sitting in the dark. "Your face," she whispered, touching the swelling along my cheek. "I'm fine." I handed her the flash drive I'd palmed from Ethan's jacket while he slept. Bank codes, final ones. He bragged about them. She plugged it into the ancient laptop we'd hidden under the floorboard. Numbers scrolled across the screen, millions upon millions. We rerouted the last of it. Every account, every property, every shell company into the trust we'd built in Lena's name. When we finished, the screen showed a single balance: 0 for Ethan, everything for her. We sat in silence, the weight of it settling between us like snow. "It's done," I said. "Not yet," Claire answered. "One more thing." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small digital recorder, the kind that looked like a USB stick. "His confession. I got it this afternoon. He thought I was you, hiding in the pantry. He was on the phone with his lawyer, laughing about the basement, about the tooth, about how no one would ever believe a crazy wife." She pressed play. Ethan's voice filled the room, lazy and cruel. "She'll say anything to hurt me, but I've got the videos. The bruises? She likes it rough. Ask her sister. She's seen the fights." My stomach lurched. He meant me. He thought I'd corroborate his lies. Clara stopped the recording. "Insurance," she said, "in case he tries to flip the narrative." I stared at her. The woman who had once begged me not to call the police now held the match that would burn his world down. "Tomorrow," I said. "We end the performance." She nodded. We did not sleep. Dawn broke gray and quiet. Ethan left for a breakfast meeting, kissing my forehead with the same casual ownership. I watched his car disappear, then turned to Clara. "Pack light," I said. "We leave at noon." She was already moving, stuffing the recorder, the drives, the forged IDs into a small backpack. I disabled the last camera, wiped the hard drives, and left the belt on the kitchen island like a calling card. At 11:57, we walked out the front door together. I locked it behind us, dropped the key into the mailbox, and did not look back. The gate closed with a soft clang. We walked down the street, 2 women in plain clothes, heads high for the first time in years. Behind us, the house stood silent, waiting for its master to return to empty rooms and drained accounts. Ahead of us, the city shimmered in the heat, full of noise and possibility. We did not run. We simply kept walking, side by side, until the perfect facade was nothing but a speck in the rearview mirror. The first thing I did after we left the house was buy 2 prepaid phones from a street vendor who asked no questions. I paid in cash, peeled from the roll Lena had kept hidden in the cabin's flour tin. We activated them in a cafe bathroom, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead like an angry insect. I texted the burner number I'd memorized weeks ago. Package delivered. Proceed to phase 2. The reply came instantly. Understood. Safe house ready. We took a bus to the edge of the city, then another, then walked 3 miles through a neighborhood where laundry hung between balconies and children kicked soccer balls against graffiti-covered walls. The safe house was a narrow apartment above a noodle shop, rented under the name of a woman who had died 10 years earlier. Sarah's contact, a retired nurse named James, met us at the door with keys and a nod. She did not ask why our faces were bruised or why we flinched at sudden noises. She simply pointed to the back room and said, "Shower's hot. Food's in the fridge. Lock the door behind you." We stayed 3 days. 3 days of silence broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional shout from the street below. We slept in shifts, one of us always watching the door. I printed the evidence at a copy shop 2 blocks away, using gloves and a fake name. Hundreds of pages, bank statements, property deeds, the ledger, the photos of bruises, the basement tooth in its plastic bag. I mailed copies to 3 different lawyers, 2 journalists, and 1 detective I'd found through a domestic violence nonprofit. No return address, no note, just the truth, raw and unfiltered. On the 4th morning, Ethan's face appeared on the news. A grainy still from a traffic camera, his car abandoned at a rest stop 2 hours north. The anchor spoke of missing businessman Ethan Harlow and concerns for his safety. I watched Lena's reflection in the television screen. Her jaw was set, eyes dry. She looked like a woman who had already buried the man and was now waiting for the grave to settle. We moved again, this time to a shelter on the outskirts, a concrete building surrounded by jasmine and guarded by women who had once been where we were. The director, a former judge named Alara, took one look at our files and said, "We'll protect you, but you have to be ready to testify." Lena nodded. I did too. We had practiced our stories until they were smooth as river stones. Meanwhile, the city began to unravel Ethan's empire without us lifting a finger. The transfers I'd executed were airtight. Every account bore Lena's digital signature. Every deed, her notarized name. His partners turned on each other like rats in a sinking ship. Victor was arrested at the port with a crate of heroin. Another associate flipped, singing about money laundering and extortion. The police raided the lake house and found the videos Ethan had bragged about. Lena bound, gagged, begging. They were time-stamped, undeniable. Claire was taken in for questioning. She arrived at the station in pearls and a navy suit, composure cracking only when they showed her the basement photos. She claimed ignorance, then grief, then rage. "My son is the victim here," she insisted. The detective played the recording of Ethan laughing about the tooth. Claire went silent. Ethan himself was spotted in a border town, unshaven, clothes rumpled, trying to buy a bus ticket with cash. He was arrested in a public restroom, hands cuffed behind his back while travelers filmed on their phones. The video went viral. Hashtags bloomed. Justice for Lena. Behind the perfect door, women shared their own stories. Shelters overflowed with donations. We watched it all from the shelter's common room, a television bolted high on the wall. Lena sat on the floor, knees drawn up, arms wrapped around them. When Ethan's mugshot flashed on screen, she did not cheer. She simply closed her eyes and exhaled, a sound like a lifetime leaving her lungs. That night, she asked me to cut her hair again. Shorter this time, almost to the scalp. "I don't want to look like the woman he owned," she said. I used kitchen scissors, the kind that had once sliced onions for his dinner. Locks of dark hair fell to the linoleum like shed chains. When I finished, she ran her hands over the stubble and smiled, small but real. We began to plan the next life. The money, untouched in the Caymans, was enough to buy the house, the one that had caged her, and turn it into something else. Elira connected us with architects who specialized in trauma-informed design. Wide hallways, soft lighting, doors that locked from the inside. We named it the White Light Center before the ink was dry on the purchase. I started writing again. Not lesson plans, not emails to parents, but the truth. Long, looping sentences that spilled out at 3 a.m. when sleep refused to come. I wrote about the smell of bleach over blood, the weight of a belt buckle, the way fear tastes metallic on the tongue. I wrote about sisterhood that is not gentle but ferocious, a love that sharpens itself on pain. I sent the pages to a literary agent who had once taught at my school. She called within hours. "This will break hearts and rebuild them," she said, "but only if you're ready to stand in the light." I was. Lena began training. Self-defense first, then counseling certifications. She moved like a woman learning her own strength. Muscle memory, replacing terror. She could disarm a man twice her size in under 5 seconds. She could also sit with a trembling teenager and say, "I know what it's like to believe you deserve the pain," and mean it. We returned to the city for the preliminary hearing. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters, but we entered through a side door, flanked by guards. Ethan was already in the defendant's box, orange jumpsuit hanging loose on his frame. He had lost weight. His cheekbones jutted like accusations. When he saw us, his mouth opened, then closed. No words came. Lena took the stand first. She wore a simple white blouse, hair still short, voice steady. She recounted the basement, the tooth, the nights she had prayed for death because it seemed kinder than mourning. She did not cry. The courtroom held its breath. I followed. I spoke of the switch, the transfers, the moment I realized justice was not a gift from the system, but a weapon we forged ourselves. I played the recording of Ethan's confession. The jury flinched. Claire, in the gallery, covered her face. The prosecutor rested. The defense tried to paint us as vindictive, money-hungry, unstable. They brought up my past breakdown, Lena's erratic behavior. We let them talk. The evidence spoke louder. The judge set the trial date for spring. Bail was denied. Ethan was led away in chains. As he passed, he looked at Lena, not me. "You'll regret this," he whispered. She met his eyes and answered, clear enough for the microphones to catch. "I already survived you. Regret is yours now." We left the courthouse into a storm of camera flashes. Lena raised her hand, not in victory, but in acknowledgement. The crowd parted. Women reached out to touch her sleeve, her shoulder, as if she carried something sacred. She did not shrink. That night, we slept in a hotel under assumed names. I woke at dawn to find Lena standing at the window, city lights flickering across her face. "I keep waiting to feel empty," she said. "But I don't. I feel full, like there's room for everything now. Joy, anger, hope, all of it." I joined her. The skyline stretched before us, brutal and beautiful. "We're not done," I said. "No," she agreed, "but we're free." We checked out before checkout time, paid in cash, and took a taxi to the house. The gate was unlocked, the lawn overgrown. We stood on the porch, where Claire had once brought casseroles and judgment. Lena pulled the keys from her pocket, the ones we had duplicated months ago. She fitted the new lock we had installed, turned it, and pushed the door open. The foyer smelled of dust and possibility. Sunlight slanted through the windows, illuminating moats that danced like tiny ghosts saying goodbye. We walked through the rooms together, footsteps echoing. In the kitchen, The belt hook was empty. In the basement, the chains had been removed. The mattress burned. The walls were bare, waiting for new stories. Lena stopped in the dining room, where she had once knelt on rice. She ran her hand along the table, then looked at me. This will be the common room. Big windows, plants, no corners to hide in. I nodded. And upstairs, private rooms, locks on the inside. We spent the day measuring, sketching, dreaming aloud. By evening, contractors arrived, Ilara at their side with permits and plans. We broke ground the next morning, two sisters in work boots and hope, turning a house of screams into a sanctuary. The morning I decided to drop the mask began like every other morning in that house. Only this time, I woke before Ethan. I lay still, listening to the soft whistle of his breath, the way it caught slightly on the exhale. The bruise on my cheek from 2 nights ago had faded to a sickly yellow, but the memory of his knuckles still burned. I slipped from the bed without disturbing the sheets, padded barefoot to the bathroom, and locked the door. In the mirror, my eyes were Lena's eyes, but the fire behind them was mine alone. I smiled, slow and deliberate, and the reflection smiled back. Today, I would stop pretending. I dressed in the red silk blouse he loved, the one that made him think he owned the color of my skin. I left my hair loose, the way he demanded, but I did not apply the makeup that usually softened the edges of my face. Let him see the remnants of his work. Let him wonder why I no longer hid them. Downstairs, I brewed coffee, strong and black, and set the table for one. No eggs, no toast, no careful arrangement of fruit to please him. I sat at the island with my mug and waited. The clock above the stove ticked past 7. His footsteps thumped overhead, heavier than usual, irritated by the silence. He appeared in the doorway, still buttoning his shirt, hair tousled, eyes narrowing at the empty counter. "Where's breakfast?" His voice carried the edge he used when he expected instant obedience. I sipped my coffee. "I'm not hungry." He crossed the room in 3 strides, looming over me. "Excuse me?" I met his gaze, calm, unblinking. I said I'm not hungry, and neither are you. For a moment he only stared, confusion flickering behind the anger. This was not the script. Lena apologized. Lena flinched. Lena served. I did none of those things. I simply held his eyes until he looked away first. He laughed, short and sharp. "You're in a mood. Fine. Make it when I get home." He reached for the coffee pot. I moved it out of reach. "No." The word hung between us like a blade. His hand froze mid-air. "What did you just say?" I said, "No." I stood, slowly, deliberately, until we were eye to eye. No breakfast, no dinner, no more kneeling, no more belt, no more anything you demand. His face darkened, the flush rising from his collar. "You think you can talk to me like that in my own house?" "This is not your house." I pulled a folded document from my pocket, the deed transfer I had printed at the copy shop. Lena's name in bold across the top. I slid it across the counter. "It's hers, and she's done letting you live in it." He snatched the paper, scanned it, laughed again, louder this time. "This is fake. You think I don't know my own signatures? Check your accounts." I tilted my head toward his phone on the counter. "Go ahead, log in." He hesitated, then grabbed the phone, thumb flying across the screen. I watched the color drain from his face as the balances appeared, zeros marching across the display like soldiers. He refreshed. Again. Again. The laugh died in his throat. "What did you do?" His voice cracked, high and thin. "I took what was stolen." I stepped closer, close enough to smell the fear on him now. "Every dollar you beat out of her, every property you bought with her silence, every offshore account you thought was safe, it's gone, all of it, And it's in her name now, legally, irrevocably. He lunged, hand raised to strike. I caught his wrist midair, twisted hard the way Lena had taught me in the shelter basement. He gasped, stumbled. I shoved him back against the fridge, magnets clattering to the floor. "Try it," I said, voice low. "Hit me again. See how far you get before the police arrive with the videos." His eyes darted to the corner camera, the one he thought only he controlled. I smiled. "I disabled the live feed weeks ago. But the recordings? Oh, those are safe. With lawyers, with journalists, with every woman you ever hurt." He tried to pull free. I twisted harder until his knees buckled. "Let go," he hissed. I released him. He staggered, clutching his wrist. "You're not Lena," he said suddenly, realization dawning. "Who the hell are you?" I leaned in until our faces were inches apart. "I'm the sister you never met, the one who watched you break her, the one who learned every trick you taught and turned them into weapons." He backed away, bumping into the island. "You can't do this. I'll fight it. I have lawyers." "Your lawyers are busy." I pulled another document from my pocket, the restraining order, signed by a judge who had once been a battered wife herself. "Filed yesterday. You come within 500 feet of this house, of Lena, of me, and you go straight to jail." He stared at the paper like it was written in blood. "This isn't over." "It is for you." I walked to the pantry, took the belt from its hook, and let it uncoil in my hands. The leather was warm from the morning sun. I heldily draped it over the counter between us. "Take it. Try it on someone your own size." He didn't move. I picked up my phone, dialed the number I had memorized. "Detective James? He's here. Send the car." I hung up before he could speak. Ethan's bravado cracked. He looked around the kitchen, the one he had ruled like a king, now suddenly foreign. "You planned this," he whispered. "Every second." I opened the fridge, took out a bottle of water, and drank slowly. "You taught us how to survive you. We just got better at it." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. He bolted for the door. I didn't stop him. The gate was locked, the code changed. He rattled the handle, pounded once, then turned back to me, panic wild in his eyes. The front door burst open. 4 officers in bulletproof vests. Detective James at the front. "Ethan Harlow, you're under arrest for domestic assault, battery, false imprisonment, and conspiracy to commit fraud." He tried to run. They tackled him in the foyer, his face pressed to the marble he had once made Lena scrub on her knees. Cuffs clicked. Rights were read. Claire's car screeched into the driveway just as they dragged him out. She stumbled from the driver's seat, pearls swinging, screaming his name. An officer intercepted her, calm and professional. "Ma'am, step back." I stood on the porch and watched them load him into the cruiser. He twisted to look at me through the window, mouth moving soundlessly. I lifted my hand in a small wave. The car pulled away, lights flashing, taking the monster with it. Claire tried to push past the officers. "That's my son. You can't." Detective James blocked her path. "Claire Harlow, you're under arrest as an accessory after the fact. You have the right to remain silent." She shrieked, clawed at the air, but they cuffed her too. The neighbors had gathered on their lawns, phones out, filming. I let them. Let the world see the end of the perfect family. Lena arrived 10 minutes later, stepping from a ride-share in jeans and a shelter hoodie, hair still short, eyes bright. She walked up the driveway like she owned it, because she did. The officers parted for her. She stopped in front of me, looked at the empty belt hook visible through the open door, and smiled. "Is it done?" she asked. "It's done." We stood together on the porch as the last cruiser pulled away. The street was quiet again, the morning sun warm on our faces. Lena reached for my hand. Her fingers were steady. Inside, the house waited, no longer a cage, but a canvas. We walked through the rooms one last time as they were, memorizing the shape of the past so we could break it properly. In the basement, the chains were gone, but the scratches on the wall remained. Lena ran her fingers over the words she had carved in desperation. Lena was here. She took a can of white paint from the shelf, the one the contractors had left, and covered the words in slow, deliberate strokes. The past disappeared under layers of clean, bright white. Upstairs, we opened every window. The breeze carried out the stale air, the scent of fear and bleach. Sunlight poured in, merciless and kind. We did not speak. There was no need. The house was ours now, truly ours, and we would fill it with light. The courthouse smelled of old wood and fresh panic. I stood in the corridor outside the courtroom, palms pressed flat against the cool wall, counting heartbeats the way I once counted bruises. Lena was beside me. No longer Clara, no longer hiding. She wore a charcoal suit tailored to her new frame, the one built from months of lifting weights and lifting other women out of darkness. Her hair had grown just enough to curl at the nape of her neck. She looked like justice in human form. Inside, the gallery was packed. Reporters, advocates, curious strangers who had followed the case from viral videos to front-page headlines. Cameras were banned, but sketches would appear in tomorrow's papers. Ethan in orange, Claire beside him in navy, both smaller than they had ever allowed themselves to be. We entered last. The bailiff called the room to order. The judge, a woman with steel-gray hair and a voice like a gavel, nodded once. All rise. We did not rise for Ethan. We rose for ourselves. He looked worse than the arrest photos. His suit hung loose, the tie askew. The arrogance had been carved out of him, leaving something hollow. When his eyes found Lena, they widened, then darted to me, confusion and fury whirling across his face. He still could not tell who was who from a distance. Good. The prosecutor began with the videos. Grainy basement footage, time-stamped, Lena's voice cracked and pleading, the tooth in its evidence bag, projected larger than life on the screen. The jury flinched. Claire sobbed once, a sound like fabric ripping. Ethan stared straight ahead, jaw clenched so tight I saw the muscle jump. Witnesses followed. The maid who had cleaned blood from the marble and been paid to forget. The neighbor who heard screams but feared Ethan's reach. Victor, shackled and bitter, testifying for a reduced sentence. He described the parties, the hair-pulling, the wine poured over Lena's head while Ethan laughed. He said it kept her in line, Victor muttered. Said a wife should know her place. Claire took the stand next. She tried the grieving mother act, pearls clutched like rosary beads. The prosecutor played the recording of her calm voice outside the bedroom door. A wife should endure. Claire's composure shattered. She called Lena ungrateful, called me a liar, called the evidence manipulated. The judge warned her once. She kept talking until the bailiff removed her. Then it was Lena's turn. She walked to the stand, without hesitation. The courtroom stilled. She did not look at Ethan. She looked at the jury, at the women in the gallery, at the future. My name is Lena Harlow, she began, voice clear, unhurried. For 5 years, I lived in that house as a prisoner. I was beaten, starved, humiliated, locked in a basement, and told it was love. She lifted her sleeve, showed the faint scars that would never tan. These are not accidents. These are choices. She told them about the tooth, about the night he pulled it with pliers because she cried too loudly, about the parties where his friends used her as entertainment, about the way Claire stood outside the door and called it discipline. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Every word landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading until the room drowned in them. When the defense cross-examined, they tried to paint her as unstable, vindictive, greedy. They brought up the money, the transferred millions. Lena smiled, small and sharp. "I took what was mine," she said. "He stole my freedom, my dignity, my teeth. I took his illusion of power. Fair trade." The prosecutor rested. The defense called no one. They had nothing left. I took the stand last. My legs were steady, but my hands trembled until I gripped the rail. I told them about the switch, about living Lena's nightmares so she could breathe, about the moment I held the belt and realized I was no longer afraid. I played the final recording, Ethan's drunken confession to his lawyer, laughing about the videos, about how no one would believe a crazy wife. The jury heard every word. When I stepped down, Ethan finally spoke. "Mara," he said, voice raw, "you could have walked away." I stopped in front of the defendant's table. "I did walk away. From you." The judge called for closing arguments. The prosecutor spoke of patterns, of power, of a system that failed until two women refused to fail themselves. The defense mumbled about reasonable doubt and moved for dismissal. The judge denied it without looking up. The jury deliberated for 97 minutes. We waited in a small room with bad coffee and a window that overlooked the parking lot. Lena paced. I sat. Neither of us spoke. When the bailiff came, we followed her back in silence. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor." The foreperson stood. She was a grandmother with kind eyes and a voice that shook only slightly. "On the charge of aggravated assault, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of false imprisonment, guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud, guilty." She listed them all. 12 counts, 12 guilty verdicts. The room exhaled. Ethan slumped. Claire wailed. The gavel fell. Sentencing was set for the following month. The judge ordered Ethan remanded without bail. As they led him away, he twisted once more. "This isn't over," he shouted. The doors closed on his voice. Outside, the sky had opened into rain. Reporters surged, umbrellas blooming like black flowers. Lena and I walked through them without stopping. Someone shoved a microphone in my face. I took it, gently, and spoke into it. "This is not revenge," I said. "This is consequence." We did not go back to the shelter. We went to the house. The gate was open, the lawn already torn up for new landscaping. Contractors moved through the rooms like busy ants, tearing out walls, installing windows that let in light instead of trapping screams. We stood in the foyer, rain dripping from our hair, and listened to the sound of hammers. Lena touched the wall where the blood smudge had been. It was gone, painted over, but she pressed her palm there anyway. "I thought I'd feel more," she said. "You will," I answered, "when the first woman walks through that door and knows she's safe." That night, we slept in the house for the first time since the swap. Not in the master bedroom, that was gutted, but in the room that would become the library. We pushed 2 cots together, shared a blanket, and listened to the rain on the new roof. Lena fell asleep first. I watched her face relax, the lines around her eyes softening. I thought of the basement, the tooth, the belt. I thought of the moment she walked up the driveway as Clara, terrified but unbroken. I whispered into the dark, "We did it." The house did not answer, but the rain did, steady and cleansing, washing the last of the poison into the gutters. The first woman arrived on a Tuesday in early spring, suitcase clutched to her chest like a shield. Her name was Maya, 24, eyes wide with the same terror I once saw in Lena's reflection. She stepped through the gate of the White Light Center, and the jasmine vines that now climbed the fence brushed her shoulder as if welcoming her home. I was in the garden, planting rosemary along the path, the scent sharp and healing. Lena was at the door, arms open, voice soft. "You're safe now," she said. "No one will hurt you here." Maya cried then, the kind of tears that come after holding your breath for years. Lena held her until the storm passed, then led her inside. I followed, wiping soil from my hands, heart full in a way I never thought possible. The house had transformed. The marble foyer was gone, replaced by warm wood floors that creaked like a hug. The kitchen, once a place of punishment, now held a long communal table where women laughed over coffee and shared stories of survival. The basement was a yoga studio, walls painted pale blue, mats rolled neatly in the corner. The chains were melted down, the metal turned into wind chimes that sang in the breeze outside the window. We opened officially 6 months after the trial. Ethan was sentenced to 25 years, Claire to 5 as an accessory. Victor and the others took pleas, their empires crumbling into indictments and orange jumpsuits. The money, Lena's money, funded everything: renovations, staff, a scholarship for women rebuilding their lives. My book, Behind the Wall of Laughter, hit shelves the same week. It sold out in days. I donated every penny to the center. Lena ran operations with a quiet fierceness. She hired survivors as counselors, women who knew the taste of fear and the strength it took to spit it out. I led the writing workshops, teaching women to turn their pain into words that could cut or heal, depending on the need. We ate dinner together every night, 20 voices around the table, languages mixing, laughter rising like bread. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the walls gold, I found Lena in the garden. She was kneeling by the rosemary, fingers brushing the leaves, eyes distant. I sat beside her, the earth cool beneath us. "Do you ever miss her?" I asked. "The woman you were before?" She thought for a long time. "I miss the innocence, the belief that love couldn't hurt, but I don't miss the silence or the kneeling." She turned to me, eyes shining. "I like who I am now. She fought for this." I nodded, throat tight. We both did. We sat until the stars came out, the wind chimes singing their soft, metallic song. Somewhere inside, a woman was laughing, loud and unafraid. Another was crying, but not alone. The house breathed with them, alive in a way it never was under Ethan's rule. Years passed. The center grew. We added a playground for the children, a library with books in 5 languages, a greenhouse where women grew tomatoes and hope in equal measure. Lena met a man, kind, patient, who loved her scars because they told the story of her survival. They married in the garden, under the jasmine, with 20 women as witnesses. I officiated, voice cracking on the vows. I never married. My love was the center, the women, the words. I wrote 3 more books, each one a love letter to the fighters. I traveled, speaking in schools, shelters, courtrooms. I told them about the switch, the basement, the moment I held the belt and chose not to kneel. I told them about Lena, who turned her cage into a sanctuary. One night, years later, I found Maya again. She was our outreach coordinator now, hair long, smile easy. She was teaching a new arrival how to plant rosemary. "It keeps the nightmares away," she said, pressing the seedling into the soil. The woman nodded, hands trembling but willing. I watched from the porch, coffee cooling in my hands, and felt the weight of it all settle into something like peace. The house was full. The garden was full. Our hearts were full. Lena joined me, slipping her arm through mine. "Look what we built," she whispered. I looked, at the lights in the windows, the laughter spilling out, the women who walked through our gate broken and left whole, at the plaque on the wall, engraved with the words we chose together. No one should live in fear inside their own home. I thought of Ethan, rotting in a cell, his name a cautionary tale. I thought of Claire, alone in her pearls, visiting a son who would not see freedom again. I thought of the tooth, buried now under the rosemary, feeding the earth that fed us. I thought of the girl I was, quiet, traumatized, hiding in books, and the woman I became, fierce, unbroken, standing in the light. Lena squeezed my arm. "We didn't win because we took revenge," she said, echoing the words we had spoken so long ago. "We won because we stopped being afraid." I smiled, tears blurring the stars. "And we taught them how to stop, too." The wind chimes sang. The rosemary bloomed. The white light center stood, a beacon in the dark, proof that some walls are meant to fall. And we, two sisters, one heart, stood in the garden and watched the light spread. Hey, you, yes, you, the one who stayed with me through every bruise, every tear, every triumph. Did you feel it? The way the story wrapped around your heart and refused to let go? I poured my soul into these words, into Mara and Lena, into every woman who walked through that gate. If it touched you, if it made you cry or cheer or remember your own strength, tell me, what city are you in right now? Drop it in the comments. I want to know where this story found you. If you loved it, if it lit something inside you, support me with a super thanks. It's how I keep telling these stories, how I keep giving voice to the silent. Your love, your comments, your shares, they're the light that keeps me going. Thank you, truly, from the deepest part of me. On your screen, you'll see 2 new real-life stories I handpicked, raw, powerful, waiting for you. My channel is full of them. More sisters, more survivors, more light. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell, come back for the next one. I'll be waiting. See you in the comments, in the next story, in the light, with all my love and respect.